Hello everyone, I'm bringing you a video today showing you the answer to the question which it took me quite a while to ask, and that's the difference between professional soldiers and officers' boots for men serving in the National Volksarmy in East Germany and conscripts' boots. Now, in East Germany, in the National Volksarmy, it was a two-tiered system. Essentially, you had the professional soldiers who were on a career path to end up as NCOs and officers, and you had conscripts. Now, the conscripts could obviously end up as NCOs and so forth. There was something of a career path there for the time they were in, and then it could, of course, also be called back as reservists. And they were issued a different style, different pair of boots when compared to professional soldiers. And we're going to have a look at the difference between the two designs in this video. There were, in fact, parade boots for career officers and NCOs as well. We'll mention those in the video. I don't have a pair of those to show you, but can nevertheless describe them in comparison to the field boots, which we're going to have a look at. So the uniform in East Germany, there is often a distinction between the items of uniform issued to conscripts and those issued to professional soldiers, professional NCOs and officers. So that's something to bear in mind when collecting East German uniform. It is very well known to most people who do collect East German uniform, but I thought it would nevertheless be useful for those getting into collecting and perhaps those who don't know the difference or haven't seen it clearly illustrated. I thought it would be interesting to make a video looking at these two pairs of boots in comparison, and that's what we're going to do now. So here we have the two pairs of boots we're going to talk about. On the right here we have a pair of conscripts boots, and on the left here we have a pair of professional soldiers boots. You can probably see there are some visual differences with these already, comparing them side by side. What I'm going to do is remove one from each pair, and we'll compare one to both right-hand boots, let's say, together. I think that's probably the easiest way of doing it. There are, I'll say, myriad differences between these, but at the end of the day they are both a pair of black jack boots, basically, in sort of colloquial terms. So what I'll do now is I will remove the two left-hand boots and we'll have a look at the right-hand boots beside one another, one from each pair, to compare the various detailed differences. So the first thing you'll notice here, again with having the professional soldier's boot on the left here, it's a lot taller than the conscript's boot, which we have here, as you can see. A good 2 inches, roughly speaking, taller, I would say. These are roughly equivalent in size. This is a 30, this is a 29.5, so they're roughly comparable. They're not exactly the same size, but they are not far apart by any means. Certainly good enough for us to compare. So that's a very obvious difference between these two. Another fairly obvious difference is the shape of the toe. You've got more of a square toe to the professional soldier's boot, as you can see here. If we compare them side by side, more of a rounded toe on the conscript's boot there, as you can see. Otherwise, the details of the seams and so forth are fairly similar between the two. The actual construction of the lowers, fairly similar. As you can see, if we compare them directly against one another. Both made in pebble grain leather. The soles are, interestingly, a different tread. You actually have a different tread pattern on each, as you can see here. So that is one quite noticeable detail difference. You can see the size underneath here, 30. This is the East German size, 30, and then 29.5. Oh, these are just a 29 actually, excuse me, not a 29.5. I've misremembered that. So these are a 29, so they're one size down, one whole size down. These have had a lot more wear, as you can see, than the officer's boots, which are basically unworn. The tread is in no use at all, as far as I can tell. Another detail difference which you can see with these is that the inside of the conscript boots are completely unlined. Apart from the backstay there, you do have a layer of smooth side-out leather there along the backstay. You do have pulls inside made of black herringbone tape, as you can see there, one on each side. You can see those there. You can see the stitching for those on the outside. Here is a square of stitching on each side, as you can see there. In contrast, the inside of the professional soldier's boots is lined with white leather, as you can see there, including that lining strip up the backstay. And again, you have these black herringbone tape pulls. Details stamped into the inside here as well, with the size and other details there, as you could see. And the pulls are actually attached with a much smaller, neater oblong of stitching on each side there, as you can see, not the big blocky sort of square which we saw on the conscript boots. That's another Another external visual distinction between the two, as you can see there. Now, another thing to mention here, which I can't directly show you in the video, but I can describe easily enough, is that professional soldiers actually had two pairs of boots. Conscripts got one pair, or one style of boot, should we say, this style, so the pebble grain, short, just as we have here. Professional soldiers received these for use with both field uniform, the field service uniform and the service uniform for normal duties. But there was also a smooth leather version of these, exactly the same in all details, apart from it was made of smooth leather rather than pebble grain leather. And the smooth leather versions were for use with parade uniform. They could also be worn with the service uniform, but that was rarely the case. So that's the three basic patterns of sort of issue footwear, individual issue footwear you will generally see. The conscript boot for conscripts, and then the two different versions of this boot, the pebble grain we have here and the smooth leather for professional soldiers. Something people will probably be familiar with is the cold weather boot, which had a felt upper to the shaft of the boot. That was actually made of grey felt. They weren't individual issue, they were issued basically from unit stores as required in very cold weather. And there were other forms of specialised footwear as well, such as those issued to the Fallschirmjäger, of course, the German parachute troops, East German parachute troops. They had their own specialist footwear. And then, of course, there's the experimental elements of that as well, issued with, which would have been issued with the UTV uniform and equipment later on, had that come into service. Prior to the rubber-soled versions, there were leather-soled versions of these. I'm not entirely clear on all the details of those. I believe the rubber-soled versions came in the 1970s. But I'd be very happy to be corrected on that if I'm wrong. It's possible late 1960s is when these first appeared. I certainly believe you see leather-soled versions of the boots for professional soldiers. I'm not entirely sure regarding conscripts boots. So this is sort of a guide from, I guess you'd say, the 1970s onwards, if I'm getting my dates correct there. As I say, this is a question I should really have asked when I started collecting East German equipment and uniform and so forth. I didn't. It took me a while to sort of realise there was a difference between conscript boots and the boots issued to professional soldiers. So hopefully having this video will sort of clear that up for people who perhaps haven't given it any thought and it's just not occurred to them. Because obviously most of the time in field uniform these are hidden by the trousers, which are actually worn over them. It's only really in service uniform with breeches, those men who were wearing breeches, that you notice the difference between them in terms of height and so forth. And obviously at a distance it's even somewhat difficult to tell then if you don't have a direct comparison between the height. So as I say, hopefully looking at these various detail differences in this video has been useful. So I hope you found it interesting looking at these. As you can see, they are quite distinct and the difference between them is pretty easy to pick out when you see them side by side. So this will help you if you're looking for conscripts boots or professional soldiers boots. And my professional soldiers boots have only recently arrived. As you can see, they're pretty much in unissued condition, which is nice. I don't plan to put much wear on them. They're primarily for the collection, but I will wear them from time to time, potentially. But certainly I don't plan on putting much wear on them at all. They do fit me. The 29.5, obviously, for the conscript boots, they're a little bit tight. And I knew that the sort of shape of the officers' boots, the professional soldiers' boots rather, is slightly more constricting. So I went for a size 30 there. And they do fit pretty well. So perhaps I'll keep an eye out for a size 30 pair of conscript boots as well. It'll fit me a little bit better. But 29 is fine for the minute. But hopefully it's been interesting looking at these. As I say, if you have found this interesting and you'd like to see more of this sort of thing, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below. And that will of course alert you when I upload future videos. That's everything for this video. So until next time, bye for now.